Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Matthew Mumbles. My name is Matthew, and on this podcast show, we pretty much talk about whatever we want to talk about. It can be my interests, my life experiences, my thoughts on things happening right now in the world, etc. Today, I want to fully review Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I know in the past I've said that I would review this episode by episode, wherein I reviewed episode 1, but honestly, I'm not really feeling the need to review 10 separate episodes of what is fundamentally the same series, and then season 2 comes out, adds another 10. So honestly, I'd rather just give you guys the whole dump of my thoughts and feelings. So we're going to break this down category by category, which there's like a million different ways we can talk about Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which, if anyone does not know, it is the brand new MonsterVerse series on Apple TV Plus that takes place in between Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters, at least the core plot of it, the main plot. And there is a lot of lore, there's a lot of story to this, there's a lot of callbacks to the previous MonsterVerse movies and media, and definitely something that I feel like, first and foremost, if you're going into the MonsterVerse, you gotta watch the previous films in order to understand this one, if fully, in my opinion, because you can watch this as a standard TV show, but I feel like the best experience for this, I know I'm like recommending it already, but if you're going into this show, watch the MonsterVerse movies. That's in chronological order as far as events: Kong Skull Island, Godzilla 2014, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. The reason why is because this show, at least season 1, even though it takes place in between 2014 and King of the Monsters, there's so much elements that either set up future events within the timeline for King of the Monsters and versus Kong, but also call back to 2014 Corley. And the intro scene is from Kong Skull Island, or at least takes place during the events of Kong Skull Island, literally featuring one of the characters. So if you absolutely want to have the best experience with the show, watch all 4 movies. They're on Apple TV Plus as well, at least from the last time I saw. But heading on back to Monarch, there's a lot to this show, so let's go ahead and unravel it, shall we? Now, with that being said, let's start with the story. The story of this whole show, again, I said it before, like literally just a minute ago, but the story is so vast and super complicated. Like, the show itself takes place over a ton of different events in time. There's Corley 2 main timeline, not timelines, but events in time, if that makes any sense. 2 years. One in the 1950s and the other in the mid 2010s. The one in the 2010s, at least Corley, takes place in 2015, 1 year after the events of Godzilla 2014, or G-Day as it's called, and basically follows a bunch of sorry, my apologies, a bunch of kids, or well, Kate, who goes to the apartment of what they think is her now deceased father, and then comes across apparently a double life that her father had, with Kentaro as, another side character, another main character to her side, if that makes any sense. And then eventually they team up with May, who is a bit reluctant at first, but then eventually turns out, she's actually kind of in, and they uncover the secrets behind Monarch and try to see what her dad was actually trying to leave behind. And of course, connections with Monarch. Monarch gets involved, and so much stuff happens with Monarch. And speaking of Monarch, the second plot is the 1950s, which takes place roughly during the events of Godzilla getting nuked. at the beginning of the 2014 movie, which it is shown in the 2014 film, but is shown a lot better in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, as it's not just the intro, it's the core focus of that one episode. And that one features Bill Randa, Lee Shaw, a much younger version, and Kaiko. These three, well, let's actually just like recap this. In episode 1, Kaiko falls into a pocket, basically like the Titan realm of sorts. I know like a lot of people say Hollow Earth. I mean, it technically is a Hollow Earth. Technically speaking, it's not the Hollow Earth we know from versus Kong. It's like a pocket. It's like a small little pocket, like an inverted planet. A certain viewer base of my channel knows exactly what I'm trying to reference there. Wink, wink. So let's talk about that. So they presume that Kaiko is dead, and so Lee actually turns out over the years went in there and actually did come out, but time works differently there than it does on the surface, and as a result, he is older, but he is significantly younger for someone that has basically what at the time was a 60-year time jump between the 50s and the 2010s, because, well, again, he should be either dead or literally on the verge of dying of old age. Like, that's basically what he should have been. But no, he actually looked fairly younger for someone who was that old. And there's even like a scene in one of the episodes, I forget the episode, but where they actually do question it when he's being interrogated by Monarch in the 2010s. So that core plot basically revolves around them and Godzilla himself, where he gets nuked, and then guess what? It turns out they didn't kill him, so they basically tell General, and all breaks loose from there. You know it. And there's even a this was really cool. Kaiko, when she falls, because time works differently, I'm gonna like spoil this right out of the gate. At the end of the show, in episode 10, I think it's episode 10. No, it's episode 9. When Kate also falls in the same hole at the same base, she stumbles across Kaiko, and the two meet. And then it's not until May and a now much older Lee Shaw reunite all together, and that's when Kaiko realizes how much time has passed, and like, you know, everything's so different. It's not the same world that she's used to. And it honestly just made for a very, very, very great, honestly, it was a big plot twist to see Kaiko alive. Because I thought, again, the same time, Kaiko was dead. I was not expecting Kaiko to survive, but there she is. So, honestly, as far as the story goes, I will say the constant time jump between episodes, because, like, here's my main problem. It's mainly the fact that it'll go from the 1950s, and then it'll go from the 2010s, back to the 50s, back to the 2010s. And while I do like the fact that it's constantly switching, it kind of feels odd. Again, I don't know how to really put my finger on it, but at the same time, it'll go being baffled, because, like, there's like this one episode where I think it was like purely all the 2010s plot and barely nothing for the 1950s. So like, it's almost as if the show really can't decide what it wants to show us. I know what it's trying to show us, a very complex but yet coherent plot between the two years, but it kind of just, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird to talk about for me. But again, that's just a minor nitpick for me. I like how complex it is. I love complex stories. That's why I enjoyed King of the Monsters so much, because it is the complex story of the Monsterverse. It has the most detailed story of it, and Monarch really delivers. That being said, let's talk about the characters. The character development, I say, and this is coming from, again, someone who's loved the Monsterverse since its conception in 2014. This show easily has the best characters of the entire MonsterVerse. And this, in my opinion at least, because you really get to know these characters a lot. You know their motives. You know what they are about. You know their character dynamics. You know their names. And honestly, like, it's so amazing. Because to me, a big thing with the MonsterVerse is I hear a lot of trash talking about the characters in the MonsterVerse, but I feel as if the MonsterVerse, yeah, they try to develop their characters, but ultimately it's what the people come for what really matters to them, and it's the monsters. So that's basically like the main focus. And even though the characters are there, you know, people don't really seem to care about them regardless, even though there's -1, but that's different. We'll shelve that to the side. Monarch prioritizes characters before monsters. And that is honestly a very smart decision, but also kind of a dumb one. We'll roll back to that, which is going to be our third category. But the characters in this are so good. Because, again, I really felt for when Kate found out that, her father had been cheating on her mother for who knows how many years. And seeing Kentaro and his mother was just a big lifetime of a shock to them. And honestly, it felt really, I felt bad for them, because it turns out, like, even though, spoiler alert, he is alive, it's just, he went off the rails for quite some time until they eventually found him in the desert, then Godzilla shows up. It's just, again, the show brings so much with it. I honestly just couldn't really fathom it. I especially loved how May was handled to be like this, I don't want to say plot twist villain, kind of she was. But May was siding with, had to deal with, what's the company's name? Now I'm forgetting. Man, there was a company in Monarch that she ended up siding with, and there was like this whole deal to bring her home. And honestly, again, I did not expect that. I literally did not expect that whatsoever. And let's like revert that back as well. Again, the 1950s plot, I felt for the characters there as well. And again, you're really going to know them. I feel like as if they did something like this within the movies, the characters would have easily been the most big, shining example of what the MonsterVerse can really do. Because again, the characters are really good. And it's just my opinion. I know probably not everyone's going to agree, but I for sure agree. Speaking of monsters from earlier, let's talk about the monsters. This is ultimately Monarch's biggest downfall, in my opinion. But I am going to explain something. In the whole show, we only get introduced to 4 monsters. At best, like, at least, like, of the MonsterVerse cast. Obviously, you come to see Godzilla, and Godzilla's most certainly in the show. But I feel like it should have had more. It honestly should have had more. Because we do get some of the Skull Island Titans in there. We do get a brief fight in the beginning, but that's all we get as far as the old Titans go. Here we have a new Titan called the Frostvark, which appeared in episode 3 and kind of makes like a reappearance throughout the show, kind of a reoccurring Titan. And they encounter him in Alaska. He's a much smaller Titan. He's not exactly a Titan. He's just more of like a smaller scale creature. There's, I forget his name. The one in the little pocket Earth. Never mind. It was the Bramble Boar. at least according to what I'm searching up. The Brambleborn makes like a very brief appearance more towards the end of the show. There's the Ion Dragon, which is the main antagonist, quote unquote, of the series. Again, kind of like a reoccurring Titan. And the Ion Dragon is the reason why that ship in Skull Island, or sorry, Kong Skull Island, actually broke down. We all thought it was Godzilla. Let's be 100% real here. Because who else better to destroy a big ship in the Pacific than our little friend? Big friend. 355 foot tall, now 393 foot tall friend. Nope. Ion Dragon. Let's be real here. We did not know like what the Ion Dragon was until, again, the show, so at least that answered it for us. But Godzilla himself, I'm honestly just going to say, did he really need to be in this show? Like, okay, hold on, let's see here. This show revolves around, or at least one of the core elements of the 1950s plot is Godzilla getting nuked. And then they find out he's not killed, he's still alive. But honestly, he is so underutilized. I can honestly give the MonsterVerse films a pass because, again, it's like $30,000 per shot according to Adam Wingard. And applying that to King of the Monsters in 2014, he only gets like 11 to 15 minutes of screen time, which, again, totally understandable because you also got to pay more attention towards the other Titans. Because for 2014, you got the two Mutos. And for King of the Monsters, you got Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan, plus the other Titans. And then for Versus Kong, you got the Warbats, Kong himself, and Mechagodzilla. So it can't just strictly be Godzilla. Monarch. We're talking about a show that has 10 episodes, 40 minutes long each, and has CGI that is basically equivalent to that of the movies. Maybe it didn't have enough high of a budget to make Godzilla in the show. Also, sorry if you hear snoring. That's my pug on the back. But Monarch really underutilized Godzilla, in my opinion, because he was literally advertised with the show. He was put on the posters, he was put on the banners, he was put on the thumbnail for the trailers, and he was put in the trailers. And even at the end, they were like, if we want to save millions of lives, we could use some help. Which, I mean, they do say that in the show, but like it's very edited. And then Godzilla arrives, and then we're assuming that Godzilla does help them in some sort of way. And he kind of sort of does in episode 10, the final episode, where he has a 1-minute fight with the Ion Dragon, where he absolutely obliterates him and throws him away. Like, that's it. It's a big body slam. The same Titan that was hyped up since episode 3 gets body slammed by Godzilla in like a minute flat. Godzilla is honestly probably a weak point in this show. I liked his inclusion, and I liked him making an appearance at the end, but at least put some more Godzilla. I think in total, the most screen time Godzilla has across both years, the 1950s and the 2010s, is about 5 minutes of screen time. Again, 5 minutes of screen time. 40 minutes each. 10 episodes. That's 400 minutes of content. And Godzilla only appears for 4 minutes or 5 minutes of that. Honestly, that's not really acceptable in my opinion because, again, I understand that it's because of the budget, but you had Toho on board. You paid for the rights to use Godzilla. So why do you not use him for a good amount of time? If you have to use Godzilla for like a short amount of time, make it like 1 minute per episode. I feel like as if he appeared for all those episodes, like a short amount of time per episode, that's not reused CG, a lot more people would have been happy because I feel like Godzilla was used more as like a marketing thing than anything else because of how much they actually plastered him. Like, the rumored title was Godzilla and the Titans. Like, that's honestly just not even acceptable. I know at this point I'm ranting, but another thing I also want to just bring up is the fact that at the end, it ends in 2017, which is like a 2-year time jump, where they come out of that little pocket dimension after they find Kaiko, and they land on Skull Island, where Kong makes an appearance. I hope Kong's not the main focus of season 2, if they do make a season 2. I'm sure they will, because they've already confirmed Monarch is like one of the best, if not the best, performing show in Apple TV Plus history. But do not make season 2 about Kong. He already has his own mediocre anime. Don't make this show about Kong. It does not work. In my opinion, Kong should not get the spotlight on what is supposed to be a not really focused on, but more based around Godzilla. It's not about Godzilla, but it's based around him, if that makes any sort of logical sense. Kong's got his anime, let Godzilla have his own fair share of the fight. So, I know it's sounding like I hate Monarch, but let me make this clear. I enjoyed watching Monarch, specifically for the characters. I loved the story and the characters that Monarch really played out with. It was such a fun show and a fun first season. And I'm really hoping that for season 2, they at least give more monster attention to the monsters. Because remember, this is Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Monsters. It's in the title, people. You're in the Monsterverse. I get what y'all were trying to do. I liked it. I loved it. But I think I would have liked it more if there was a bit more monsters. Because remember, this is the Monsterverse. And, again, for something that has that much episodes and content, really feel like there could have been more. But, so what is my overall score? Honestly, I gotta go with like an 8.5 out of 10 with this. I feel as if, again, I like this show from a character and story narrative. The monsters are what keeps dragging it down for me. Don't really have much to complain about the humans and story. Aside from that, like one little constant time jump gimmick. But the monsters really were underutilized. So I feel like if there's a bit more monsters, this show would probably be my favorite thing for the Monsterverse. Maybe a lie. I really liked King of the Monsters, so who knows. But with that being said, thank you guys for listening. I'm really hoping that we get a season 2. And, again, I hope we get more Monsterverse content soon. We're getting Godzilla Kong, the New Empire in literally a month's time from now. Because it's February as I'm recording this, so hopefully we get something soon. With that being said, guys, thank you guys for listening. If you guys liked it, definitely subscribe to the channel. Believe in Jesus. Accept Him as Lord and Savior today. Spread the gospel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, everyone. God bless.